All right, Sammy. So we just finished working together for 6 months.
Yeah.
Um, Super excited. Um, yeah, about all the process, the progress that I've got to witness with you, and yeah, I just want to take some time to kind of acknowledge some of the things that you experienced in these 6 months and celebrate the wins that came up.
Yeah.
So, first thing, could you say a little bit about where you were at, like what was going on for you when you joined the coaching program, also how you got in?
Right.
Um, and yeah, let's just start there.
Okay. So before I started the coaching program, I was I had started creating more, posting more on social media, creating these YouTube channels, and then I just found myself burning out and like feeling all of these kind of past uh, traumas come up. Um, they really kind of were debilitating for a while, like just not wanting to make anything or even show myself publicly very much, like a lot of social anxiety, fear, and shame about creating, and feeling it a lot in my body. So I was very stuck in my head. And so this embodied creators program, I was like, that's what I need. And I heard about it through my dad, who was also doing coaching with you, which was a really awesome experience. I had like heard great things about you, and then he told me you're doing this workshop, and so I ended up going to this workshop, the No More Self Sabotage, and I had a bunch of things light up for me then. And it's like things were clicking together, and I felt like a good period after that where I was like, yeah, I feel like life is going a lot better right now. And then kind of stuff started coming back in, and I was like, I need some more serious support with this. So I decided to sign up for your program.
Nice. Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had these ideas of wanting to kind of share more of who you are with the world, like your kind of creative expression, and actually starting to do that.
Right.
And I actually remember because I saw one of your rap videos and I really, really loved it.
Oh, thank you.
And so you started doing that, and then in this process, you started noticing things coming up, and like
Yeah.
they were really intense to the degree that you weren't able to continue doing what you wanted to do
Correct.
because it was like too challenging and too uncomfortable.
Right. Lots of resistance.
Uh-huh. Okay. Um, what changed? Where are you at with that now?
Yeah. So for the longest time, when all these things were coming up, these emotions and the social anxiety and the fear and the shame, it was just so intense that any way that I tried to think about it didn't really work because I was kind of in this anxious, like dealing with a lot of anxiety. So any sort of rationalizations I could try to make didn't do the job. Like
Yeah.
like I would just make interpretations of like maybe I'm just somehow not allowed to do this. Like there's some sort of like
Mm.
barrier like that I can feel um that's like preventing me from creating or doing these things. And sort of my perspective on it now that I've like gotten in touch with sort of the source of all these experiences is that the way that I had started initially creating ended up kind of turning into something that ultimately I didn't want to do at my core, or at least in the same way.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like way more in touch with kind of the way I want to approach creating, and also just being able to kind of have more trust in that even if I do something while experiencing fear, I'm going to be okay because I'm going to be with myself. I'm going to have
Mm.
support,
Mm.
and I'm just going to be excited about it, even if there's some unknown. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Super cool. And I know that you actually recently posted a new video, right?
Yeah.
Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing that this brings me to is that um, something that we worked with a lot and that I tend to work with a lot with clients is, um, I guess you can call it inner parts work,
Right.
where it was a lot about basically understanding better the resistance as you described it coming up in this process, and also how you described it, like creating a space where it's okay that this is here and there's still enough space around it for you to move forward and be compassionate with this part.
Right.
Yeah, curious to hear like your thoughts and experiences on like how would you describe it and what has changed in terms of how you relate to these different parts in you.
Right. So I had kind of been somewhat familiar with the concept of parts work before doing the coaching with you, but then when I started that No More Self Sabotage workshop, that kind of clicked a lot of things as far as that model, and it's continuing to be super useful for me when relating to not only the physical sensations, so like kind of like the throat area of like where I feel the shame and the fear. I can relate to that as kind of like a part of myself and sort of develop a relationship with it in that way. And then also these kind of more aspects where a conflict of ideas or interests that I can also relate to
Yeah.
as different parts. And so I can have kind of more integrity and just more flow if I can like really figure out where I'm at in all these different areas, as opposed to just kind of having it be this disorganized mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like feeling fragmented and like not knowing
Yeah.
what's going on inside and being
Or that
like, what's
things are,
wrong
yeah,
with me?
buried away and I
Yeah.
not dealing with them. But when things are kind of like, I look at things, bring them to the surface and kind of examine them as I'm like moving forward as well and seeing like, okay, I notice this part is coming up when I make this video,
Yeah.
and this part actually has something really valuable to tell me about this video, or kind of like is bringing up something that can be healed from my
Yeah.
past. Or so, yeah.
Yeah. Super nice. Yeah.
And right
And
now
then
I've been doing, yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
I've been I've been doing these little kind of just like keeping it as a practice,
Yeah.
doing these little check-ins at the end of every day, which before I had kind of like done it every now and then and a little bit during the coaching too, and then decided like, okay, I'm gonna like this seems to be working really well, so I'm gonna commit to it, and so that process has really helped me out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like taking time on a consistent basis to kind of check in with these different parts rather than waiting until they're screaming so loudly that you're like, okay, okay, there's something I need to do about this.
Exactly, which is
Yeah.
what it felt like in the
Yeah.
beginning, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this actually brings me to another piece, which, yeah, it's like that's a place where I see so much um, that like your approach has changed in the sense of like we talked a lot about the highs and lows and how
Right.
like depending on where we are we tend to identify like, oh amazing, everything is going super well, and if we don't understand like, well, after every high there's going to be a low, like then the crash is going to be like, oh my god, what's wrong with me and my life is
Totally.
shit. And like I see this so clearly how much more focused you
Mm,
are on the basic trajectory you're on
yes.
rather than like and always acknowledging like, oh I'm experiencing quite a high right now, or oh I'm feeling kind of in the middle, but I'm like I feel really good about the kind of direction I'm going. Or like, okay, past few days have been kind of low, but like it's not the main focus anymore. It's like a bit more zoomed out.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
and just understanding like, hey, like both of these are always going to be there. What matters is where am I
Yeah.
going? What am I practicing?
Right. And I think like one thing that has helped me a lot is just the length of the program, having it be 6 months.
Yeah.
It's like you've seen me go through those lows and those
Yeah.
highs and enough times where I'm like, oh, this is a pattern. I can like see that
Yeah.
I'm in a high or that I'm in a low. And we can
Yeah.
talk about that and address that.
Yeah.
And like right now, I feel like I've kind of gone through that enough through this program, and like gained awareness about that, where I kind of know what triggers those a little bit more
Uh-huh.
and sort of what can be addressed like in the moment as I'm sort of entering a downward spiral or entering this like crazy high, what can
Yeah.
be kind of like calmed or addressed. I'm feeling a lot more present and even just way more present in the body too than when I started, for sure.
Yeah. Amazing. Um, what helped you? So you just said like there were some definite low moments that you went through in our time together. Um, what helped you get out of it again? What helped you stay on track? Because just to add a bit more context, I think like when things are going well, it's easy for most people to just keep going. But when things get tough, that's when we usually stop. That's when we usually give up. That's when we usually stop seeing the bigger picture. So I'm curious to hear like what helped you in this process. I mean, you can talk about our work, but also like things that you just did
Yeah.
that helped you keep walking.
I think the thing that ultimately uh, helped me is to include, just keep including anything that comes up and realizing that it's not, I don't have to define myself by how I was this day or how I was the next day.
Uh,
And then continuing with each session to like have like another kind of anchor of like, all right, we can like kind of reframe this in a way that allows me to get back up after I fuck up and mess up.
mhm.
And yeah, just also kind of having those sessions to look forward to as well kind of gave me like, okay, how would I think about this in a way that is maybe more beneficial to kind of the work I've been doing in the coaching as well.
Mhm.
And like learning things like dialectical thinking. So yeah, exactly. Like holding uh, sort of multiple perspectives at the same
Yeah,
time, and about learning about the nervous system, which we talked about, and
yeah,
like how to self-soothe in those times, and like kind of develop compassion in ways that um, are easier as opposed to just like saying I love myself, even when it's like there's like a feeling deep down of kind of like a hate of oneself sometimes.
yeah,
um, but like actually finding ways to kind of show compassion even when there's some like rough patches,
uh-huh.
for sure. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that our sessions were kind of an anchor where you repeatedly kind of experience like, oh, no matter what I bring in, it's like it's okay. And there's a way to look at it where it's like, well, this is part of my process rather than,
Exactly.
well, great, Sammy, now you fucked up. We can end our coaching now.
And I
Yeah.
said that I was like, do we need to edit that out? I stuttered. I was like, yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so you had these anchors through the sessions, and
Yeah.
gradually something in you started to solidify of like, okay, I've gone through this several times of like something really challenging, something that I previously was not able to hold with compassion and kind of include, right? What you were saying, like
Right. Right.
include,
Yeah,
um,
totally.
that this confidence in you grew, that you now know that if this happens in the future, it might be challenging, but you
Right.
know that you've gone through it before. So like this confidence of like, yeah, I can take risk because I can recover.
Right.
Yeah.
I think another thing that I just want to point out that has been helpful to me, um, because during this time I've kind of had like somewhat of an illusory sense of self at certain times, like not knowing what my purpose is, not knowing what I stand for, not knowing who I am, um, at some deeper levels. And I think one thing that really has helped me with that is the integrity exercises that we did, and like
Yeah.
continuing to do those affirmations, sort of like just grounding myself in like, oh yeah, this is me, and I can
Yeah.
remind myself of kind of what I stand for and more of what my values are.
Yeah.
That exercise really helped me, especially in those times where I'm like kind of floating in and out of like purpose and meaninglessness.
Yeah. Yeah. Like being reminded that you always have the choice to act in integrity or not. Like it doesn't depend on how you feel or what's happening in your life. It's like this is always in your hands,
Yes.
which is a super powerful thing, because I think the biggest source of suffering is when we feel completely helpless, like nothing is in my hands. And like
Right.
with the standards of integrity, with this core value exercise, it's like, okay, things are really challenging right now. What are the things that I know that help me?
Yeah.
What are the qualities that I want to embody?
Yeah, and bringing it to exactly where you're at too. So
Yeah,
that was another kind of struggle, was actually being okay with taking really small steps,
yeah,
which I had to learn how to do. Really,
yeah,
was to take small steps.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I really want to celebrate the work that you've put in this coaching program, like watching the recordings of the sessions and then also doing the summaries of each session, which is amazing now because we have like a thread of
Yeah.
summaries and like there's like these super powerful insights. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so it's like you're harvesting the work that you've put in.
Mm.
Um, I really want to, yeah, stress that because obviously, like, there are things that I bring to the table in the work, but it only works if you do the work, right? Like,
Right.
and you did do that. And so now you get to see the benefits of that, which is super awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, are there any other like big aha moments, like things that came up that kind of stand out when you think uh, of our time together?
I'd say I'm just thinking of like one session in particular, where it was very focused on kind of just being present the whole time. There wasn't like a whole lot of dialogue going, just because that was what was needed during that time.
Yeah.
But it was like definitely felt like a breakthrough moment where I was like, oh, I settled into my body more,
Uh,
and kind of what I was experiencing as like this chaotic sort of mess of emotions,
yeah.
um, was able to settle and become a lot smaller and a lot more manageable and relatable too. Like I was
Uh-huh.
able to relate to it a lot better.
Yeah.
And so I think I appreciate just the fact that we were able to like spend a whole session just on that,
Yeah.
um, specific thing, which is what I needed.
Uh-huh.
And just continuing to do like that here and there when I've needed that has been really powerful and helpful.
Yeah. Yay. Yeah, this is a good point, is that I would say like each session is quite unique. Like it looks
Yeah.
quite different, right? And sometimes the focus is more on just being able to witness and be more present with something possibly overwhelming that's happening. And then sometimes being more practical and being like, okay, like what are steps that you can take after this session to kind of bring more of XYZ into your life? Um, yeah. And yeah, it makes sense that, that very often the breakthroughs come just, or what is present right before breakthroughs is like huge turmoil and like, oh my God, I don't know how to handle all of this. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it takes courage to stay present with that. Right. I think like one thing which you mentioned in the beginning is like being stuck in your head a lot. It's like, well, that's one of the tendencies that we have if things are too much. So yeah, I guess like I want to celebrate this, like your capacity that has grown so much to feel in your body what's
Mm.
actually going on, and then there's less of a need to like go up into your head,
Right.
because you're actually able to stay present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So for people who might be in a similar place as you, um, people who might experience themselves as being more sensitive than others, just experiencing a lot, like very intense emotions,
Yeah.
jumping from one emotional state to the other,
Yeah.
mind racing, but
Totally.
also this desire to express yourself and be like, man, being aware of the gifts that you have. What's something that you would say to a person like that? Like what would you recommend to them? What might help them in their process?
Yeah. I think one of the one useful thing that I've heard before, uh, from like a psychiatrist that I sometimes watch, is one thing that he said was like, you don't know what will help you, or something along those lines, which is like kind of saying like, even if you think you've tried everything, even if
Mm,
you think you've thought of every logical way out of the situation, you can't come up with
mm,
anything, or you think you've done everything you can, you just don't know what you don't know. And
yeah.
so I'd say like whatever you're struggling with, if it's like really intense emotions when it comes to this creating and like showing yourself, or if it's like this social anxiety, or you these stories that are coming up about your creations, like I shouldn't be doing this, or like it's bad, or it's or so, just all sorts of things, whatever the
Mhm,
story may be that feels so limiting. I think that with enough patience and time, that these things can really sort themselves out, and
mhm,
especially with support, like
mhm.
more than anything, that's what I needed during those times.
Yeah.
And David was just there, and knew how to help me and facilitate that process of like really being with the stories and the emotions that came up, and sort of
Mhm.
not ignoring them, and
Yeah.
also not just like diving in super head first, like being
Uh-huh.
patient
Yes.
during the whole thing, and
Yes.
being very attentive as well, so not neglecting
Mhm.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this, what you just said, this like being present and attentive, but noticing this tendency to like go fully in, like I
Yeah,
have to go through this fully now,
exactly.
which usually doesn't really work.
Which has been my mistake time and time again. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I feel like I finally have really learned kind of the patience that it takes. And also
Yeah.
just that, like, kind of the breakthrough that you're looking for, can just come from like a consistent process. And then all of a sudden you'll see things start to click, and it'll seem to click at an exponential rate, even when you're like just doing like the small itty bitty steps. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, this is probably the, if I could find a way that what you just shared people would get, like that's
Yeah.
probably the greatest power, is like the whole pattern of wanting to go things fast is part of the reason why you don't get anywhere. Like the moment that you start, like it's a kind of humbling down. It's like, fuck, is really the small step all I can do? Maybe it is. And you can try to go bigger, and if it works, great. But if it doesn't work, like go small, and things will start happening. And so it's like it will, like, looking kind of like step by step, it will go slower than you would like. But looking back, you'll be like, whoa, that was fast. Like a lot of things
Yeah.
happened.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that step is just, yeah, being present with not being able to move, not being
Yes.
able to do much. And it's just
Yes.
like being like, okay, this is where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Being open to when you do have the capacity to take that step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what you developed through this is um like the ability to have discipline from a place of self-love, like taking
Yeah.
steps not from a I should be somewhere else,
Right.
from like I'm bad and wrong, but like no, they're just things that freaking matter to me. Like they're values I want to express, but
Totally.
I'm going to honor the things that come up in the process. Like I'm not just
Yes.
going to push beyond them.
Right.
That's, yeah, I think this is super important, especially for sensitive people to understand. Is like there's no enemy inside of you.
Right.
Yeah. Even the part that's like super hateful and like whatever, it's like with enough space, it can become an ally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. That's super nice to go through the process with you again,
Yeah.
or like to get some of the gems. Um, what's something that you're really proud of this time?
Mm. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that comes to my mind is kind of along the same lines of like taking that small step, which is really like, even it's not even like the consistency necessarily that I'm proud of. It's more so that even after being very inconsistent, or like, being very unproud of myself, being able to just like be like, actually, I can still like come up from this. I can still
Mm.
rise from the ashes slowly
Mhm.
and like do something, and do something that I want to do, and like
Yeah.
create something, like even after like not posting for a really long time, or not uh working out for a really long time, I can like do this workout again, and like
Mm.
maybe I'm not as in shape, but like the point isn't that I've been in shape. Like the thing that I'm more proud of is just being able to do it even when I haven't been consistent, even when I
Mhm.
haven't been like super proud of myself, and being able to
Yeah.
just like continue to like, yeah, be able to do it.
Yeah. Which makes you unstoppable because like that's the place where most of us are at least challenged is like, okay, I have this plan.
Yeah.
It didn't work out as I wanted,
Right.
and then I stopped. But if you
Yeah.
have this skill that you just described, it's like, okay, I fucked up. Here I am. Let's go again.
Yep. And it
And
could be
so,
I fucked up for a whole year,
yes,
and then I
absolutely.
take this small step.
Yeah.
And ironically, like that frame of mind actually helps you achieve more consistency too, because you're consistently getting back up,
Yes.
even when, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. You also mentioned in the very beginning something around social anxiety,
Mm.
or anything you want to share on that, like things that you experience differently now, or things that have helped you.
Yeah, definitely the parts work. Um, Being able to realize when kind of an anxious part comes up within me, and I can sort of relate to it in a way that I can comfort it,
Mm.
and just even that awareness of like kind of the sensation as it comes up when I'm like near the end of a phone call, and I'm like, oh gosh, how do I end this? Like, do I continue talking to it? It's like, okay, I see what's going on. I see that
Mm.
this has been a struggle for you for a long time, and we'll see what happens. I'll be here the whole time.
Mhm.
That's kind of the frame that's really helped me. And also just realizing that, uh, um, yeah, having some more relationship experiences that ease that feeling and like kind of disconfirm those negative beliefs associated with the
Mm,
anxiety as well, of like,
mhm.
actually, when I did end up reaching out to these friends, I had a great time. And
Yeah,
I finally like took that step. It was like just having those experiences really helped me as well. But like even when I don't have those experiences, when it is something rough, then being able to come back to myself and like
yeah,
be there for myself. Yeah.
nice. Okay, so knowing that you got your own back, that even if like
Right.
all the terrible things that this part, the anxious part, is afraid of, they happen, you're still there.
Yep.
And also noticing, well, if I actually do reach out to other people, I do make experiences that are not uh, aligned with the worries and the fears and so on. And obviously, that
Right.
strengthens something else.
Yeah. Totally.
Nice, super cool. Nice. Yeah. Anything else that you want to share around the coaching that we didn't cover? That's important. That might be important for you to share or for someone to hear.
I'd say just that like you've gone through a lot of stuff too, and it really helps to be with somebody who's gone through a lot of stuff and like came out the other
Mm,
side, and like
yeah.
just just the richness of your own experience too has really helped me kind of contrast and like
Mm,
relate really well,
mm,
and just all of the tools that you've kind of like just like showed me at different times and like see like where I'm at and what I need, and kind of you seem to have something for me, um, which has been amazing. Yeah, thank you.
mm. Yeah, we had some good laughs when some fuck up happened in your life, and I got to share some of my fuck ups.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good to have that. It's good to realize that when like things go bad for everyone, and like
Totally.
it's good to notice when we like assign a lot of meaning to bad experiences, and then
Yeah.
like step out and be like, well, everyone has gone through stuff. And yeah, I
Yeah.
like what you said. Like, I think that's one thing that I like to share with people is like, I went through so many emotional challenges, and I had so many moments in my creation process and showing myself of like, how will I ever be able to feel grounded and clear and on
Yeah.
purpose with this?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Totally.
if someone like me did it, you'll be able to do it as well. And
Yeah.
yes, it might take support, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with getting support. On the opposite, it's an expression of self-care.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Cool.
Going through those times with somebody else is just
Mhm.
invaluable. Yeah.
Mhm. Yay. Well, Sammy, again, I celebrate all the changes that you've brought into your life.
Good. Thank you.
I look forward a lot to seeing more of your creations.
Sweet. Yeah.
And yeah, keep rolling.
Excited. Sweet. Thanks so much, David.